A staggering 40 million Americans get their water from one source. This is Lake Mead, a large reservoir that lies below the Hoover Dam. The water from Lake Mead is essential for the lives and livelihoods of millions of people living in California, Nevada, and Arizona. This year, however, the water levels of Lake Mead have fallen to their lowest since the reservoir was created in 1937. But what's the real reason that Lake Mead has been drying up, and why is it such a big deal? Lake Mead drying up is a huge deal because it supplies water to almost 40 million people in the region and supports the agricultural industry. It's also a major source of hydroelectric power, providing electricity to those same cities and towns. The problem is that the water levels of Lake Mead have been dropping over the last few decades due to climate change and increased population growth in the region, as well as several other factors. For those key reasons, Lake Mead has now reached an all-time low and is just half full. The main issue facing Lake Mead is that the current supply of water can no longer meet the demand of those who rely on it. But what will really happen if it dries up? If Lake Mead completely dries up, the consequences will be severe. The already weak environment that has been harmed by global warming and drought will be further affected. Additionally, the communities that rely on Lake Mead for their water will suffer from water shortages, leading to crop failure and economic hardship. Beyond this, losing a body of water this large will lead to unrepairable ecological damage. This means that the species of fish, amphibians, and mammals that live in or near the lake will be in danger of extinction. Furthermore, places such as the Grand Canyon may experience even more water shortages than they already do. Not only that, but the Colorado River Basin, which Lake Mead is a part of, may also lose its ability to supply hydroelectric power. This could mean the loss of electricity for millions of people in the southwest United States. Talk about a devastating result from a single lake drying up. But what are the real causes of the lake drying up? The main causes behind Lake Mead drying up are climate change and human activity. Global warming is bringing higher temperatures and less snow to the American Southwest, which means that the lake can no longer rely on natural weather patterns for refilling. On the other hand, humans are using too much of the lake's water, primarily for agricultural uses. With the loss of water creating a possibility for many disasters, such as dust storms and wildfires, it's important to take action. But how much harm are humans causing really? Is it possible for us to make such a big impact that would cause Lake Mead to dry up, or can we blame this on climate change? Despite the fact that many people, including the officials in charge of Lake Mead, would want to blame this entirely on the climate and measures that we can't take, this just isn't the case. If Lake Mead was drying up naturally and there was nothing we could do, then it would be okay to accept the fact and move on. But that's not the case. The answer is obvious. The human causes of Lake Mead drying up are by and large our excessive water consumption. Overpumping, groundwater, using more surface water than can be replenished, and a lack of water conservation efforts are all to blame. Climate change is certainly a factor as well, but it's important to realize that it's human activities that are the primary cause of Lake Mead drying up. But that's not all. The population is another major factor. The population near Lake Mead has grown exponentially over the past few decades, with more people moving to the area and consuming more of the lake's resources. This has put a huge strain on the water supply and has caused it to become overused beyond its natural capacity. So, what can be done, really? If you guessed that there was something that could be done, you'd be right. The only issue is that the organizations in charge of Lake Mead aren't making the right decisions. At the moment, the Southern Nevada Water Authority is the only organization controlling the access to Lake Mead, and they seem to be more concerned with extracting resources than with preserving them. Therefore, what's needed is a change in policy where the Southern Nevada Water Authority focuses on the conservation and preservation of this vital resource for all its users. If you're wondering what they're doing at the moment, it's not conservation. Instead, the Southern Nevada Water Authority is looking to develop new methods for extracting more water from Lake Mead, such as building an underground tunnel. This tunnel is intended to supply additional water to the region when Lake Mead's levels are lower than normal. While this will help in crisis situations, it won't help restore Lake Mead. We built this huge tunnel underneath Lake Mead so we can access even the last drop should the worst of all possible scenarios happen, one of the officials explained. In order to save and restore Lake Mead, the following must be done. Conservation of water by reducing use, irrigation methods that are more efficient and sustainable, and a change in policy and governance that will allow for equitable access to the lake's resources. In addition, other measures must be taken, such as reducing water pollution and improving the watersheds around Lake Mead so that more of its water can be used. Some organizations are suggesting that the federal government should provide aid to states and communities in the region so they can better prepare for the impacts of climate change and to help them find solutions. If nothing is done, though, the situation may be dire and Lake Mead might not last as long as you'd think. During the monsoon season of 2022, the water levels of Lake Mead were no longer at their lowest. During this rainy season, the levels actually rose slightly, which is good news. As 2022 closed out, the water levels had reached 1,044 feet. Does this mean that the lake is saved? Unfortunately, no. The amount of water in Lake Mead still needs to rise significantly, and the current policies put in place by the Southern Nevada Water Authority need to be changed if this vital resource is to be preserved. Despite the fact that the water levels rose for the first time in a little over 3 years, there is still much more that needs to be done in order for Lake Mead to return to its former glory. If action isn't taken quickly, Lake Mead may dry up completely before long. This is especially true if the mega drought continues in the area, as this will cause more water shortages and droughts. Let's sum it up. Lake Mead is a vital resource that supplies water to almost 40 million people in the American Southwest. Unfortunately, this body of water has been drying up in recent years due to climate change and human activity. Without intervention, Lake Mead may dry up completely, leading to water shortages, crop failure, and economic hardship for the people of the region. To prevent this from happening, steps need to be taken to conserve and protect this location from further damage. There's ultimately only one party responsible for Lake Mead drying up: humans. Climate change has certainly been a factor, but it's the excessive water consumption and lack of conservation efforts that have pushed this body of water to its current state. If we want to save Lake Mead and prevent further damage, we need to take the necessary steps to reduce our impact and make sure this vital resource is preserved for future generations to come. It's also worth noting that we were the cause of much climate change as well as greenhouse gas emissions. For these reasons, we must remember to also take steps to reduce our carbon footprint and manage the planet's natural resources responsibly. That's it for this video, though. Do you think Lake Mead will be saved in time? Let us know in the comments. Also, remember to leave a like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell if you haven't already. And we'll see you in the next video.